Hello, and welcome to SeemsToBeSo.com. Today I was answering email, and a wonderful lady by the name of Carol had written me and told me how much she enjoyed my EQ lessons, and I just want to say thank you. What a really lovely compliment that is. It's great to know that some people have learned something from my lessons. I would like to mention that EQ support is fabulous. They will answer your emails with questions you may have most of the time within hours, and all of the time within 24 hours, except for weekends when they do take the time off, sure, to be with their families or do conferences or that kind of thing. But they always are really good about answering your emails. Not only that, but they actually answer the phone. A real person, not a recording, except maybe during non-business hours. I don't know. I've always tried to call within the business hours. So, and I have always gotten the help I needed right away. And when I have written an email, I've always received an answer within 24 hours, except one time I had to wait a weekend, which I didn't mind because I wasn't in a big hurry for. So I just want to what is that word I'm looking for? I just want to re-emphasize that EQ support is really great. And so if you can't get an answer, from someone like me, you can at least try EQ support, because they really are there to help you. Even after, years of owning the software, they are still helping people. So just because you bought the software 30 days ago doesn't mean your support ends, or even a year ago. It doesn't mean the support ends. They are always there to help you, and they are more than willing to do so. They want you to learn the software as much as you want to learn it. So I'm just going to, I hope I've covered that issue really well. So she wanted to know about stitch order, because in some of my videos I've talked about stitch order. And so I'm going to show you how I decide stitch order in EQ and why it's kind of important. Even though in Electric Quilt itself, you really wouldn't necessarily always have to think about stitch order when you're drawing applique out. But you do have to think about it also, because let's say, well, as a for instance, I'm drawing this cow, and there are definitely places where I should start drawing and where I probably shouldn't start. If I, for instance, decided to draw the whole cow all at once, that would not be correct, to be honest with you, because what would happen is I would need to end up doing these little parts out here in this ear next, and I would have to use the send to back feature, which is, let me draw a really quick little thing here. You can use the send to back feature by highlighting the object using your right click menu and go send to front or send to back, or you can use these two icons up here. I have started using my icons more, so I'm pretty excited. And I've made other changes since I've made my first videos as well. But it can be kind of a hassle if you don't really think about your stitch order. So stitch order is important, especially in drawing applique or when you're tracing shapes from an image. So I'm just going to show you real quick where I would start with this image. You want to look for the parts of your image or your object that you're drawing, and what might lay underneath other parts of the object. In this case, with the cow, these parts, the udder, I guess you would say, and this back leg, and this leg, and this ear, all set behind the main cow object. And so consequently, they are going to be drawn first so that we can make sure they are hidden up in this area when we're turning our edges under for our applique. And on a second note, you can choose to do the hooves whichever way you want to do them, because your left with an open option. The only thing that's really going to cover is if you do your leg and then you decide to do the hooves, you're going to have to cover your entire foot or heel or whatever they call the cow's leg bottom. I really do not know. I'm going to say hooves. So when you're turning your edges under, you're going to turn all 4 of them. But if you put the hooves first and then you put the big cow on, you would then be turning under the edges of the cow leg itself, and this top edge would be open. So you have that option, and that's why I say sometimes you need to worry about stitch order and sometimes you don't need to worry about it. And so I'm going to draw this object, and as I draw each object I will turn the video back on and show you what I have done. I'll be back in a few minutes. Okay, as you can see, I have drawn this back leg right here. And when I select the object and turn on my hide show, it shows me that it's filled in. Now I'm going to note here that I decided that I'm going to put my hooves on the top, and that way I can just enclose this entire object, and I don't mind that so much. When I was up here doing the udders, just some tips on drawing, I didn't feel it was necessary to take this line and put it all down in here, because when I draw this udder and then have to cut out these parts are going to be really close when you're turning your edges under. So you want to have plenty of underneath part on your leg so that you don't have to worry that you might be cutting into what's underneath your udders. So that way, you know, I mean, I hate to say if you mess up. Knowing me, I would mess up because I'm just really bad at doing inner curves and points with applique. I'm trying to improve, but I'm very bad at it. So I always like to have that extra room, and so I allow for extra room on things like this where I know I'm going to have issues with the turning anyway. Okay, I'll be back in a few minutes. Okay, so now I have drawn the second leg, and I have chosen to go ahead and draw the full leg instead of bringing it in here just a bit. And I might change that later on. I don't really know at this point what I'm going to do as far as that goes. But for now, I usually just go ahead and draw the whole leg, and that way it gives me a little bit of help when I'm drawing the additional parts that will come with it. I draw a lot of animals, so I have a lot of patches sometimes, and they always seem to like to put those patches right on the edge, even though I'm sure there's probably patches in the middle of cows also. So anyway, the next thing I'm going to draw is the ear up here. And we have a little thing with the ear where it's 2 different colors. And so you want to ask yourself, okay, which one am I going to do first? Am I going to do this outer ear or the inner ear? Well, for me, I'm going to do the inner ear, the pink, because it looks like it would look better for the pink to lay underneath this ear so that you get a good bit of shadowing on that outer part of the ear. And to me, I think that's a good thing. I wouldn't want to have less black because I chose to put the pink on the outside. So I'm going to go ahead and put the pink on the inside and leave the black on the out. I'll be back in a few minutes and I'll show you what I did. Okay, I want to talk a moment about the fabric that's laying over into what's going to be underneath the big cow part. Because I know that cow is going to be a white fabric, possibly a dingy looking white that I might have. I don't know that I have any, but I certainly am going to try to find something that gives me that look of a cow as much as possible. And I'm going to have a light pink underneath. There's every chance that part of the pink might show through on the underside of the white. And so the reason why I chose to use a curve is because I know that with a curve, it's less likely to show that layering underneath the white than it is if I had used a straight edge instead. If I used a straight edge, it's more likely, because when you iron it and that kind of thing, sometimes those layers come up through your fabric and you can kind of see an indentation. So I use curves for that reason, because I think that to avoid that indentation, it just is, it doesn't indent as well into the fabrics and you won't see the underneath. Like, you know, I mean, it's not like I'm going to use a cheap white fabric or something like that. But at the same time, even good quality white fabric sometimes is see-through. So that's all I'm just trying to say with that. So I wanted to point that out. So next I'm going to draw this outer ear. I'll be right back. Okay, when I'm drawing the parts that go underneath, I do my best to try and match up the lines. With the underneath, I always have a slight line that's just outside or inside of whatever the outside object is. And that's so that it's still lined up, but your pink is not going to show through that black. It's just going to be right there on the edge. The reason being is at this part, you want these to be even, looking like they match right up. And that is why I do that. I make sure that this lines up perfectly, and if it's not, I will mess with it until it does. And I keep thinking I need to write support and ask if there's some way to snap those lines to the other lines, but I just never think to write, because I just I'm such a, I don't want to say I'm a perfectionist, because I'm not a perfectionist, but I'm so tedious about making sure that it's lined up that I will spend minutes. I mean, I'm not going to say hours, because I've never spent hours, but minutes. I will spend literally minutes trying to get it to line up properly. And the other thing with down here, I've kept with the curve, and I do try to line this up as well, because if this were just a little bit more out here or a little bit in here, and you did get some kind of indentation, you want it to be consistent. You don't want it to be looking like the lines are off. And so I line it up, because if it is going to make an indentation, I at least want it to look consistent. I know that's weird thinking, but I have had it happen to me. So and it doesn't happen often, but it does happen. It has happened. So the next thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to draw this udder, then I'm going to draw the big cow part. But I will come back with the udder just to show it to you before I close off this video. Be right back. Okay, I'm ready to draw the big part of the cow. And I thought I would mention something about this ear over here, because we obviously have pink in this ear. And it's not going to be too easy to draw this and have this problem here. So you have to think about how you're going to do this. You know, are you going to take and try and make, you know, like oh, let's see if I can find that shape. Something like that's not an oval. It looks like a teardrop to me, or a quote. You could do something like this, or maybe something like this, and try to blend it in. But for me, I'm not going to do that. I know that when I come up along here, I'm going to come right back up and over here and do this. I might even come into here and come up this way and come over here and continue on with the cow. And the reason for that is because I would do this pink as a separate part. And I would do this so that it's up and over the white. So you're going to be turning the pink edge underneath, and the white can just stay underneath as the shadow layer underneath and doesn't need to be turned under. And the reason for that is because it's just easier. When I think about how when I'm doing the stitch order, I do think about how I'm going to turn these edges under, and how it's going to work for me because I don't do hand applique, I do machine applique. So I also have to think about how that's going to work with my machine and how easy it's going to be to get the machine to turn and all those other little things that one has to think about when they're stitching along, because it's not just about watching the applique and stitching along like you're watching 1/4 inch seam allowance to make sure it stays at 1/4 of an inch. It's the same thing. You're watching that blind stitch to make sure it's staying on the edge. And so you have to think about, you have to look ahead and you have to know what's coming. And of course you've already put your parts in place, and so you know you're going to be stitching that. But when you're doing the white part of this cow and you have that already on your background, you're going to, maybe perhaps glue in place your pink part so that it stays put. And when you come stitching up along here, the cool thing about this is that you can come along here, you can come through here and do this one, and then maybe just come back right up here and do this. At the same time, you could come along here and do this one, come down here, come back over here and do this, and then come back later and do this. It's really all in how you want to do it. But at the same time, and another way to do it is you don't have to put the pink part on. You could come up here and just do this, come up here and go around, do the rest of the cow, and then come back and do the whole pink part. And that's probably how I would do it, because to me, by doing it that way, my whole pink part is stitched at the same time. And it's not just halfways, and I don't have some double stitching anywhere. And at the same time, it gives it just that little bit more strength because it's got the starting and the stopping in the same spots. So that's why I think that's how I would do it if I were going, well, when I stitch this out, because I definitely will be stitching this out at some point. So that's why I want to emphasize to you about that, and why I'm talking about this stitch order, because while you think it might not be important, it is important, because even though you could go ahead and draw everything any old way you wanted in EQ, and EQ would put the templates in the order they best think they go, EQ still puts them in, even though they're thinking what goes first and such. But what they might not be thinking about is, if let's say you had drawn your cow, let's say I have my leg on the top. Okay, I'm going to show you that it's not right now. Currently the udder is not. But if I send this part to the front, okay, and now I say, okay, let's print our parts out. It's time to print. So I go to print and I choose templates, and I come up here and I do a preview. What's going to happen is it's going to make you put the udder first in the stitch out before this, and that's because the send to front feature is telling it that leg is next after the udder, even though we know that's not correct. And if you sell your patterns, or you give your patterns away, or whatever you do, you don't want to tell someone, have this happen, and have them say, ooh, I don't think that's right, there's something wrong with that, because those little udders should be showing on the outside of the leg and not the inside. And that's why the stitch order, and this is why stitch order is very important. No matter how you draw this, you still have to think about what's going first and what's going second, what's going third, and so on. So even though EQ does all the other parts for you, it's still up to you to think about how the parts are going to go in place. And that's why I emphasize about stitch orders. So essentially speaking, you could just take and put this back, and if you notice, it will change. See, now this is part D and this is part E, and the udder will stitch on top of it. So, and that's how we want it to be. So that's why stitch order is important. I hope I've gotten this across from you. At this point, I'm going to draw the rest of the cow, and I'm going to finish this block off. And I think I've given you an idea of why stitch order is important. I hope it helps you out when you're designing your own patterns, your own quilts. And I hope you have a great day. We'll see you again soon. Bye-bye for now.